Welcome to part three of this job interview series of videos I've been doing. I've been trying to show you how you can improve your success when you're interviewing in English for a job you really want. And if we go back in part one, I talked about something that most people don't spend any time preparing for, especially in this case, because this whole series is about if you're interviewing with a US interviewer. So maybe a native speaker from the US. And that's what I'm trying to prepare you for, is how you can improve your success doing that. So again, in part one, what I was talking about of nobody prepares for this is small talk. And small talk is incredibly important. And you can see that video up above here. There's a link to it. And you can see it in the description below. And do yourself a favor. Really get comfortable with small talk if you have to interview with somebody from the US. And then in part two, I moved on and I talked about focusing on being able to tell real stories, because that, to me, is the real heart of your answers. That's what it's all about. And making sure you prepare yourself by being able to tell these stories, things that actually happened to you. It's much more important than having your perfect English. And today, I'm going to try to tie everything together. And I'm going to show you, a bit of a real interview simulation here with a native English speaking American interviewer and a friend of mine who's going to help me out here. And I'll pause during this thing and try to explain what's happening as we go through each of these different stages so you understand exactly why certain answers work and why other answers fail. Let's jump right into this. Okay, let's focus on the opening minute here. And the opening minute is all about small talk. And again, if you're interviewing with a US interviewer, the decision often is made to hire you or not hire you in the first 30 seconds. If you fail at small talk, there's almost no chance you're going to get this job. It's not going to happen. Your energy matters and your small talk skills really matter here. So let's take a look at a bit of a simulation here, okay?
Hi, nice to meet you. Thanks for coming in today. How's your week going so far?
It's going really well. Thanks. I've actually had a pretty productive week. On Monday, I attended a leadership workshop that my company runs. So I've been practicing some new ideas with my team.
Oh, that sounds great. What kind of leadership strategies did they teach?
One that stood out was how to handle quick decision making under pressure. We did a group exercise around that. It was really fun. Okay, let's go through me being a coach here. Let's go through and break this down a little bit and take a pause. So, why did that small talk work? I guess is one question we need to take a look at here. First, I'd say, the candidate, in my case, me, didn't give some short little boring answer. Instead, I expanded and I built upon my answer. And also, I shared something really positive. I talked about workshops, growth, learning. Interviewers love this. And finally, I created kind of a path here for the interviewer to ask a follow up question. Make it really easy for the interviewer to ask follow up questions. Don't just give dead end answers. Remember, small talk isn't about perfection, it's about creating connection. And connection builds trust. All right, let's move on to the first real question and maybe take a look at why people fail as they start getting into the meat of this interview. So now the interview officially begins. And this is where many non native speakers start to really get nervous and panic. Oftentimes you're panicking about your English, but other times it's not really because of your English, it's because you didn't prepare to be able to tell real stories. So let's take a look at this and you can watch the difference. Here's an example of a really, really bad answer.
Tell me about a time you had to solve a difficult problem at work.
I am a very good problem solver. I always try to look at the big picture, and I think I am strong with teamwork and communication. Terrible. So let's break this down a little bit again. And people practice these crazy answers to these questions they think are going to be asked, but that's a terrible answer. But it happens all the time with people, especially non-native speakers. And what the interviewer feels here is that answer, it's generic. It's memorized. There's no story in it. There's no evidence. There's no emotional connection at all. And honestly, the answer is forgettable. Let's fix it. And let's use my STAR method here that I covered in part 2 of this video series. All right, so here's another example, but let's call this a much better or a good answer, okay?
Tell me about a time you had to solve a difficult problem at work.
Absolutely. Last year, my team was falling behind on a product launch because 2 suppliers missed deadlines. My role was to coordinate the recovery plan. So I contacted both suppliers, renegotiated delivery dates, and reorganized our internal workload. In the end, not only did we deliver on time, we reduced extra costs by 12%. It really taught me the importance of clear communication under pressure. Wow. Now that answer works because it's real, it's grounded, it's clear, and it shows that I was thinking, or in this case, you're thinking. It's your actions and your results. Again, focus on being able to practice talking about your real stories because real stories always beat hypothetical answers. Interviewers hate hypothetical answers. Well, if that ever happened to me, here's what I would do. Ugh. Tell a real story about something you've done. That's what you need to do to prepare. All right? Let's go on. And I want to talk about active listening because I think active listening really can be your secret weapon during an interview. Yes, listening in an interview. Okay? Let me show you what I mean by active listening in an interview. And I think it's the ability to respond to what the interviewer says, not what you memorized. It's so important to really just relax and listen. If you're prepared, your answers will come, but you need to relax. First, you need to prepare, and then you can relax. Okay? So let's walk through another simulation here. Are you ready?
That sounds like a high-pressure situation. How did you keep your team motivated during the delay?
Oh, that's a great question. Honestly, the pressure was real. So here's what I did I created short daily check ins, not long meetings, because I found those don't work. And just 10 minutes to share updates and keep people aligned. It gave everyone clarity and it really reduced the stress. Now, that answer works. And here's why it works. The answer, it really listens to the emotional tone of the question, the stress, pressure. It adds some real natural detail. 10-minute check ins. It shows leadership without me bragging about how great I was. I expanded, I built. It really works well. Just like in part 1 and part 2 of this video series, this idea that you need to expand and build on your answers. It really helps. And be real, be genuine, be authentic. All right, now let's look at something I think is super important here. And we all kind of take this, we know this is going to happen at the end. And it's always, do you have any questions? Well, think about this for a minute. When you're asking questions at the end of your interview or anytime during your interview, this is your final impression. This is where you can really leave a mark with somebody. All right. So, what I would say, what I experience is that the US interviewers, they're going to judge you heavily on the questions you ask. And usually this happens right at the end. If you're going to ask no questions, whew, That's a big red flag. That's not going to work out very well for you. So let's take a look at maybe a good example of somebody asking questions, okay?
Do you have any questions for me?
Yes, I have two questions, actually, if that's okay with you. The first one is, we've talked a lot here, but I'm curious, what does success look like in the first 90 days for this role? And second, what are the biggest challenges that the team in this case is currently focused on? Now, these questions really show curiosity, preparedness, professionalism, and confidence. And you want to make these questions be relevant to whatever the discussion was. So you could add some detail as to whatever you were talking about before. Make them specific. Be flexible enough so that you can add some specificness to the question so they don't sound rehearsed, okay? And this is how you can really end this interview strong and put yourself in a great position. Let's look at your closing message here, because I think this is kind of the way I look at things. The entire series that I put together here has really had one message. Interviewing, it's not about your perfect English. That's not what's going to help you succeed in job interviews. But instead, what you need is real connection. You need to be clear and have clarity. You need to be able to talk about the real stories that have happened with you. Most importantly, you need to be able to actively listen, even when you're nervous. Because all of this put together, confidence gets built through your preparation and having really good preparation. I know if you practice these skills that I've given you in part 1, 2, and today in part 3, you're going to sound really natural. You're going to sound confident. You're going to sound ready. So give all of these a try. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, share your comments, and I also invite you to learn your Business English Confidence Score. You'll find the link in the description below this video.